Welcome to the first episode of Talk is Biotech. My name is Guru Singh, and I'm with Krzystof Potempa, the CEO of Braincures and passionate neuroscientist and bioentrepreneur. In this interview, we will learn from him his entrepreneurial journey, his mission, vision, and much more. So let's listen to the interview.
Thank you, Guru. Hello, my name is Krzysztof Potempa. I am the founder and CEO of Braincures. We are a virtual biotech with a very bold mission to cure brain diseases, which affect 1 to 6 people worldwide.
That's awesome. Krzystof, do you want to tell a little bit about your journey? How did you end up in biotech and started your own virtual biotech company?
Well, the story starts, I guess, with my birth. I was born into a family of scientists. So my father's a biochemist, and I'm the one of 3 who went on to follow his footsteps to become a scientist. I started by doing a degree in the University of Georgia in biochemistry and molecular biology. And then it took me about 3 years before deciding if I wanted to do a PhD. My neuroscience journey started in 2004 when I joined the lab in Paris. It was a Marie Curie funded network of leading neurobiologists. The project was very challenging. It was about the functional genomics of synaptic plasticity, or in more layman terms, of learning and memory. Right. So I was going to join a group where I would learn how to do data science. At that point in 2003, things would be called data science and not artificial intelligence. So right after my PhD, I was quite lucky to go immediately into pharma. And I worked there to support the lead for Alzheimer's disease at Lundbeck in Denmark. I was supporting my boss and some teams working across different diseases from Alzheimer's, psychosis, multiple sclerosis. So it's a great continuation of my project. I worked at Lundbeck for about 2.5 years. In the time there, they had 2 rounds of redundancies, and I was made redundant on the 3rd one, where they decided that they maybe can outsource what I did for them. And then end of 2010, I was essentially still thinking, what should I do? And I think that's when I wish I started Braincures, because I would have been the first frontier company doing data science and neuroscience. I think at that point, there was a lot of cash going into data science back in 2010, repurposing. So I started working with microarray data. And that became very unpopular in 2010 when the next-gen sequencing data came in. So I was almost, you could say, a bioinformatician who became redundant because the technique or data I used to work on was no longer popular, because next-gen sequencing was more fashionable. Right. But I found a leading immunologist in London who was actually in love with microarrays and had a big project working on understanding immunoregulation. And we know that the immune system has a lot of ties with neuroscience. So when I saw a job advert with her at the National Institute of Medical Research, which then became the CRIC, I spent 4 years in a group teasing out different mechanisms of immunoregulation. At one point, it was very funny. On my 3rd year, she thought she had made me to an immunologist. And then I surprised her with saying, well, look, I'd like to write a grant for funding in neuroscience, have my own venture idea, spin-out idea. I said, what? I thought I'd made you into an immunologist. So my love for neuroscience is unwavering. It gets even stronger.
So I can totally see your passion towards neuroscience, but what motivated you to start this company? Did you identify any key problem, key gap that you are trying to fill with your solution?
Oh, definitely. When my contract finished in 2006, Anogara at the CRIC, I looked at what does the neuroscience field still look like. And it was clear to me that it was getting worse and worse. Companies were backing out. The failure rates in Alzheimer's is a graveyard. We have essentially 1 in a 100 success rate from really drug discovery to clinic, and the cost of developing Alzheimer's drugs is projected to be 6 billion rather than the 2.6.
Oh, really?
Yes, leading Alzheimer's scientists have said that it's essentially a success rate in Alzheimer's disease from drug discovery to drug is just 0.4%. So, but I said, well, Braincures. So during my PhD, we discovered, you could say, a novel molecular mechanism for how memory happens that could be then translated into treatments for neurological disorders from Alzheimer's disease, depression, addiction treatments, pain therapeutics, Parkinson's. We found that we figured out a novel mechanism. We tried to publish it. And after 3 major rejections, I said, well, it's time maybe to learn from these rejections and start a biotech. I would say it was rejections that led me to say, it's time to start my biotech. I've been in academia, I've been in pharma. I went back to academia, and now it's time to do something on my own. And actually, I went to an event organized by One Nucleus. So One Nucleus is a network here in London. They organize an annual event called Genesis. So I went to a Genesis conference where I heard about what AstraZeneca does and how they do stuff, and the 5R framework where they've gone from 4% preclinical success to 20% preclinical success by focusing more on the right biology, right genetics, right target. There I find out about the London Bioscience Innovation Centre, which is a virtual hub for about 50 companies now. Essentially, I started my business there.
I want to come back to your original comment that it takes almost double, if not triple, to bring a cure or treatment for diseases like Alzheimer's disease. Why do you think it's more expensive? Because just of the complexity, or we don't have much clarity about the target? Or what is the reason that it is way more expensive? It's already so expensive to bring one drug to market, right? On an average, it's $2.6 billion. It's crazy. And but Alzheimer's, you were saying it's up to like 6 billion. Why do you think that's the reason?
I think the reason why neurobiological drug discovery is so expensive, up to 2 to 3 times more, I think, is that we need more understanding of fundamental biology, which Braincures have focused on. So I think we need to do a biology first approach, like Braincures has done, and then we will only be able to understand how existing or what novel drugs could be made. So Peter Ball, my business development person, said when he looked at Alzheimer's disease, what I sent to him, he said, it sounds like doing the same thing over and over again, which is insanity. But I'm hoping for a different outcome. We need to change that. And I think we can. I'm very optimist. So
are you currently totally agnostic towards neuro disease, or you're focusing on Alzheimer's and Parkinson's specifically?
My answer to that is that Braincures is very opportunistic. We know that biological molecular map we have can be applied across spectra, across the different diseases. We know that using retrospective data benchmarking, we can predict clinical success outcomes with a 60 to 100% accuracy, which is at least 6-fold higher than any other thing that I am aware of. And obviously, we as a company alone, we are dedicated to brain diseases.
What is your business model? So do you provide this as a service? So big pharma come to you and they say, we have this problem and we need these answers. So that's how it works? Like a consulting, you use your own proprietary software, or do you have your own candidates in mind that you're working on?
So we have a proprietary algorithm that helps companies evaluate their drugs or a question, put a biology on top of it and tell pharma or biotech customer how successful they could be and what biomarkers they should take on to deliver a precision medicine project. And I think the most beautiful thing with our algorithm is that while still retrospective, we know that we can get our client up to at least phase 3 with full success. So typically the relationship with a pharmaceutical biotech company starts with the client giving us their question, and operating on a service fee basis, we do a Braincures report for them.
So how did you create these models behind your platform? Is it like client sourced, or is it through public sources? What is the source of that data?
The data really for Braincures started with, so when I started my PhD, I had access to essentially did a genomic screening across the 3 different phases of learning and memory in a healthy animal. So it was the most interesting data set I think I've seen out in the space, because typically most people focus on having already a disease model and reversing it back to health. We are more interested in how does learning and memory happen in a healthy animal in a model that we understand really well, and at 3 time points. So I think also the key thing is that we had this time point data, healthy data.
So is your focus on repositioning, repurposing existing drugs using your data, or you're also helping design novel drug molecule?
We do both. So we help companies choose repositioning opportunities that have the very high likelihood of success with right biomarkers. Essentially, we run what we call a virtual screening approach. We often also leverage Broad Institute's L1000 resource. So that's an in vitro resource. But we have in vivo data from our microarrays that I did back in 2004. And then there's complementary data sets that we leverage to then predict. You could say it's a virtual phenotypic approach that has both in vivo and vitro data, where we get essentially an S-curve that then gives a Braincures discovery molecular index score, which actually ends up correlating very well with the efficacy of the drug. So we've done such an exercise, for example, for Alzheimer's disease, where we virtually screened 55 drugs, and we obtained L1000 signatures. And using the Braincures data, we identified that 20 of them have a profile that's better than the current memantine that's used to treat Alzheimer's disease. And then we went and did literature searches around some of those, and we found that many of those drugs had already phase 2 clinical data that shows it's very efficacious for treating mid to late Alzheimer's disease, but the drug has not been advanced. This is data going back from 18 years back. So we're able to use a biology-driven approach to tell clients, well, look, this is something that could be advanced. What is the Braincures discovery engine algorithm? The Braincures discovery engine, it's essentially 822 genes that are modulated by thousands of molecules. We use systems biology approach to define a molecular GPS system, a molecular corporation, where we have these 822 genes. We've defined who are the managers and who are the executives.
What is your key value to your clients? Are you also helping them reduce number of experiments they have to conduct in-house, like wet lab experiments, because you're leveraging existing data to help them fail fast? So do you think that's one of the case as well?
Oh yes, well that's the Braincures discovery engine essentially cuts off 4 years you'd spend in the preclinical drug discovery period.
There are many different ways you can reduce the life cycle of a drug, right? It starts from discovery, preclinical, clinical, the commercialization. Yes. There are many innovative approaches. One is by empowering scientists with innovative tools, like better preclinical models. Another is more leveraging AI. I know AI is overused term, let's say machine learning, leveraging machine learning existing data to get some prediction and help companies to fail fast rather than taking 2 years to fail on some molecule. They should fail within a few months. I think that's what all we want. So I do think leveraging existing data, because we already have so much data in public domain, if someone can structure it properly and make sense out of it, it can be game changing. So is this a crowded space, like leveraging data to empower your clients in neuroscience domain? you have too many competitors in this space? How crowded is it?
Competitors who use biology as a guide to mine data, there's not many. There's just a handful.
What do you mean by biology as a guide? So they all are using biology data, right?
We recently were featured by Longevity Technology, where they wrote an article, Move Over AI, Here Comes Biological Intelligence. There are very few companies who start with the motto, the company motto or DNA is biology first. And it's very clear from the AstraZeneca 5R framework study that if you have no biology, good target biology, target genetics, and good biomarker, your project will fail. I mean, that's a clear message from the 5R framework.
So it's not very crowded space just yet.
For the approach that we use, there's 2 to 3 other companies that are applying a biology first approach. And always in our team, we have to be very clear that the artificial intelligence space, that's super crowded.
That's true. That's true.
Every month there's 10 new companies.
Yeah, I doubt though, because most companies claim they are AI company, but the truth is they are not AI company in most cases. Some of them are, but and also it takes time to generate some intelligence. So you have to create a model, continuously gather data, structure them. So it does take time. So I personally think it's overused term.
I second you to that.
So currently you are focusing on any specific stage of drug R&D? Is it just discovery or preclinical as well?
So the Braincures drug discovery algorithm and processes can be used across the whole pipeline. This is our advantage compared to our competitors who are working in the artificial intelligence space, who typically only address a single aspect or 2-3 aspects of the drug discovery process. Our approach doesn't require any of the deep learning that the artificial intelligence companies are using. We have an algorithm. We have a novel biology that we know works.
Right. I'm just curious. So your business model currently is more like a consulting approach. They come to you with a problem and you help them find these answers, leveraging your data models. But do you plan to offer it as a platform, like platform as a service? So they have access to your platform. They can enter whatever drug target they're working on and get recommendation. That's on your radar?
Oh, yes, that's on our radar. And obviously for this, we are in conversations with people who have already some solutions running and a customer platform where they would say, well, we've got this Braincures add-on now that you could have for X amount. One way where we could deliver that. And obviously we have companies who are approaching us and saying, could you build us an engine that we will own? Yeah, they say, well, we want you to integrate the L1000, our data, your data, and then it will be our engine, right? And then we'll figure out what the business model is when we get there.
It's always tricky. There are 2 routes. One is you create custom solution for them. It can be really messy. One is off-the-shelf product, and then they can just configure it based on their need, but it's not completely custom. That's more scalable. So I think software companies generally face this challenge, especially if they work with bigger clients. Their needs are so custom, and when you focus with one customer, it's not scalable, right?
When I was deciding about what should Braincures be, should it be a software platform or should it be a biotech solutions platform? I realized tech solutions platform will be the one that has the highest likelihood to deliver what we really want, better treatments. And I say the low-cost, high-success business model of drug discovery. We know Lilly, has been successful they have this team, what they call the chorus model. They essentially have a 3-person team. So they have a medical doctor, preclinical scientist, and someone from the business angle working on a project. And they've been able to do a lot more effectively than the whole Eli Lilly. They do the fast fail, essentially up to phase 2A, de-risking killer experiments. And it's been very successful. That's what Braincures see itself, as you said, we are a consultancy at this stage because we don't have. We are obviously looking for investors who could make the virtual pharma model realistic. Where we could be delivering phase 2A preclinical packages to our clients, which I think the big clients, this is how we can best engage them. It's also possible to have preclinical package, but we know what investment it costs to get those.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the challenges you face day-to-day basis? So what are the key challenges you face as the CEO of the company?
Right. So we've got a product and we now need funding to make it go forward. What we need is partnerships that make things happen that don't start with the word money. We have a common goal. We have found a few such parties. We are working towards the common goal, and we find that such relationships end up making the most money. I mean, if we look at some of the small companies, they started like in a garage, right? Apple. Well, Steve Wozniacki is the Polish guy, so I'm also Polish, so you never know. Sky's the limit for Polish people.
You reminded me of one thing. I always compare biotech industry, like especially drug biotech therapeutic companies and typical tech companies. So in tech companies, you have stories like someone started from his or her dorm room, right, in the college or garage, and they created a like $1 trillion company, like Apple is one of the example. But we don't hear such stories in biotech just yet. But hopefully with offering like yours, people will be able to work from their garage, coffee shop, or maybe their dorm room and create drugs to different diseases. But currently, I think we miss that. We don't hear such stories in the biotech world.
I think that's been the reason why I think we don't hear about these Apple successes in biotech is that they get gobbled up before they become a success because of everyone focusing, or 99.9% of people focusing on the word exit. I would say Braincures creates a model that can work for an investor who has a short-term perspective of 3 years. We would tell them, look, we would recommend you our data analytics aspect. If you are aiming for a 3-fold return or higher ROI, I can show you companies that have made it in the data analytics space. And we know we can do it because of the interest we're having in Braincures from the data analytics side. Obviously, for the drug discovery aspect, we need people with a slightly longer term perspective. I think what was lacking is that people like to say, oh, we only do syndicates, right?
Yeah.
Or as you know, this article I said, how to build a biotech. I think Bruce Booth really nailed it, saying, well, look, back in the early 2000, you get a 15 million, people writing 15 million checks, right? So you get the 15 people, build a brick and mortar biotech. Today, you don't need a brick and mortar biotech. You get CROs to do virtual pharma for you. And then companies are starting to write smaller checks.
CROs plus also leveraging data, right? So if we have to perform hundreds of experiments and we can reduce 50% of that dependency and do everything in silico and outsource the rest of it, that's when you can create a virtual companies. But currently, we do have all these CROs, over 10,000 CROs exist. And we have great AI companies. So I think hopefully the combination of outsourcing model and this intelligence model would help create many more virtual biotechs. Hopefully next Apple in the biotech world very soon. So what advice would you give to aspiring bioentrepreneurs? No one would argue that we need more leaders in this space. We need more people to start biotech companies because the impact is massive. We have so many diseases. How many diseases currently we have without any cures? Over 10,000 key diseases. So we desperately need cures for that. And we need more bioentrepreneurs like you to solve some of the problems. So what advice would you give to some really smart scientists still in academia working for big pharma? What would you recommend to them?
I'd say for the aspiring bioentrepreneur, they just need to be bold and follow their dream. Don't be afraid. There are good people out there. You're going to need to network And I think these bioentrepreneurs need to look into accelerators like the Y Combinator and the Techstars and other combinators, because those are where you'll meet people who are, I guess, dreamers and make it happen. So I think you need to have a dream and then make a plan and then deliver on it. Yeah, and obviously you need to, I guess, work in biotech and pharma to know the language and how the people think. One thing that I would tell these entrepreneurs is to work actually with academics interested in translation. I think I initially over-focused on a relationship with big pharma as the one that will get us there. But we found there are some programs within the NIH, translational scientists, get the proof of concept sometimes with academic groups, or our focus on biotechs under, say, 100 people, where everyone's got a win-win goal.
I want to say it's really inspiring what you are doing, what you have done so far. And we hope we have more bio-entrepreneurs like you. We need more companies to solve some of the problems. So it's really inspiring what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining me today. And let's talk later.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Krzystof. Bye.